Hey everyone, it's Khoa here. In this video we're going to be covering Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and a very powerful concept on how people spend money according to the middle class, the poor and the rich. So let's go check it out. Obviously, as you know, there's the poor and then there's the middle class, okay, and then there's the rich, okay. He doesn't have a leg. Alright, so there's the poor, there's the middle class, and the rich. Now, these three types of people, they have different spending habits, and that's what's really interesting about these three types of people, is that they have different spending habits. And let's go have a look at it. So basically, everyone has something like this. It's called a financial statement, right? Financial statement. Okay. Everyone has this. Right, a financial statement. So what is it? It looks like this. So you have income, and you've got expenses, and then you've got assets, and then you got liabilities. Okay, so obviously income is income coming in from your job or from your business, right? So all your investments. So that's your income there. As you know, you got your expenses. So you got the expenses such as car, house, electricity, council rates, all those type of things. So that's your expenses. Your assets are the things that you own that puts money in your pocket. Okay, so this is the assets that you own that puts money in your pocket. That's what's really important. And liabilities, so for example, it could be a positive cash flow property and so forth, or it could be a business that puts money in your pocket. That's an asset. And a liability is basically something that takes money away from your pocket. It could be a credit card debt. It could be a negative cash flow property, whatever it is, right? Something that's not really making any money for you. Now, these two could be it's up for debate. A lot of people can debate about what's an asset, what's a liability. That's what Robert Kiyosaki talks about, but I won't get into that one there. But it's just important to just understand these four principles. So you got the income, money coming in, expenses, money going out. Assets are the things you own that puts money in your pocket, and then liabilities. So, these are things that takes money in your pocket. So it's really important that everyone has this financial statement. So who cares, right? Who cares? Everyone's got a financial statement. Well, the way you spend your money really determines your future. So that's what Robert Kiyosaki talks about, is that rich people, poor people, and middle class people, they spend their money differently. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So I'm just going to clear that one out. Okay, so let's say that if we were to look at the poor, so what the poor do is, let's have a look at their financial statement. So if we look at a financial statement of the poor, what they do is, so they've got some sort of income, right? So they've got income. And what do they do? With the income, that obviously they have their expenses, okay? So they have a lot of expenses such as house, payments and everything, but they don't save or anything. So obviously all their money goes into expenses, and they probably buy other useless items, whatever it is. They don't invest or anything. So their money goes into expenses, and then their expenses could be a lot as well. So the expense column could be quite a bit, and then that's pretty much it. It goes out. You know, it doesn't hit the assets. It doesn't hit any liabilities. It might even go into liabilities, which obviously decreases the income. So the poor, the look of the income, the financial statement could look like this. So you got income there, okay, and then they've got the expenses, okay. The expenses could be a lot bigger. Okay, so the income is small, they've got a lot of expenses, and that's it. Income goes in, expenses goes out. That's pretty much it. You know, and obviously they're poor because there's nothing going into their assets, and sometimes they might even take credit card liabilities, which affects their expenses, obviously, and therefore the expenses goes higher. So there's no assets, there's nothing that's actually increasing their income. Okay, so that's the reason they're poor. Right, so they got no savings, there's no assets or anything. Okay, so that's just something just to keep in mind. So by having a look at the middle class, what the middle class does is that they actually take up a lot of liabilities. So what the middle class do is, when they get income, they got income there. It obviously goes to their expenses, and whatever they have left over goes into their liabilities. So it could be a house, right? But this house is probably not positive cash flow. So as a result, their liabilities is actually chewing away their income. right? But obviously they're not hitting their assets or anything, right? So therefore the middle class, the middle class actually earns a lot more, so their income is a lot higher. All right, their expenses is a lot higher as well because they have a higher income, and obviously their liabilities is a lot higher. Okay, okay, so income, expenses, liabilities. So that's pretty much the way of spending money. They have the money, goes into expenses. They buy liabilities such as a house, or they have credit card debt, and this really affects them. Okay, the middle class, there's quite a lot of them, as you know, in the population, and they have a lot of money, so therefore the government targets these guys to get as much taxes as possible. Now let's have a look at the rich. So by having a look at the rich do things a lot differently. So what they do is they get the income, and that goes straight to their assets, right, which pay for their expenses. So that's pretty much how they spend their money. They get their income, goes into assets, and these assets pay for their expenses. That's all it is. So for example, just by having a look at it, and plus not only that, they have more income streams, not just one source, but they have multiple, because they're constantly buying up assets, they have more income to put money into assets which pay for their expenses. Okay, and it doesn't really even hit the liabilities because they have good debt. There's a difference between good debt and bad debt, which I won't get into, and I don't want to complicate things. But what they do is that with their income, they buy more assets which pay for their expenses. So just the way it looks is that their income looks like that. They have little expenses, and they have, okay, so the rich have something like this. So the income is really big. Their column is, they've got a lot of income streams. I think millionaires have at least 7 income streams, so it's quite a lot. They've got a lot of income streams, and obviously they have a lot of assets. Because they have a lot of income, they're buying up a lot of assets, and as a result, these assets are paying for their expenses. So the expenses column would be a lot smaller. Okay, so to put this into another context is, let's say that you got a rich person here. A rich person wants to buy a car. Okay, it's a really fancy car. That's my drawing of a car. All right, and this car is $1,000 per month. All right, $1,000 per month. So instead of taking your salary and paying for this $1,000 per month, let's say that the person makes $5,000. I'm just being very simple, okay? Per month, the person's income is $5,000 per month, right? Instead of taking $1,000 and then paying for this car, which he can definitely do, what this person does, he takes that income and he buys an asset such as a positive cash flow property, or he probably buys multiple ones, or commercial building, or whatever it is, right? It doesn't have to be property, it can be a business, whatever it is. It's an asset, okay? And this asset produces positive cash flow that pays for this one. So that's a smarter way of thinking about it, okay? So if you think about it, this person and that person actually, the rich person owns the asset which pays for this expense, right, and still maintains their income. So isn't that a better way? Your income is not affected. And the assets is not affected. The assets pay for the car, all right. And most likely, after a few years, the person gets bored of the car and gets rid of it, but still has those assets. And these assets will pay for something else as well. So the rich are continually buying up these things called assets, all right. So that's what the rich do, is that they become a master at finding assets that produce positive cash flow. They keep buying. It pays for a lot of their expenses, and that's how they get rich. Okay, and it's not just about them being CEOs or really great business people or anything like that. It's because they just know how to buy assets that pays for their expenses. That's all it is. So that's basically the differences between the poor class, the poor, the middle class. So that is Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, what he talks about in terms of how the poor, the middle class, and the rich spend their money. It's a really powerful book. I highly recommend for you to check it out, read it, and devour it. It's a really great way to understand how the rich people think and what they do to actually make money and become more wealthy over time. So hope you liked this video. If you found it useful, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.